The drums of Bida had barely quieted when a new sound began to rise along the Niger. Ships cutting through the water, soldiers marching inland, and flags no one in Nupeland had ever seen before. The British had arrived. Their goal was simple: control the river, control the trade, and eventually control the people. They came with treaties that turned to threats, and when words failed, they turned to war. By 1897, Bida's proud warriors faced an enemy unlike any before. Armed with cannons and machine guns, the thunder of battle would shake the very heart of Nupeland, and from its ashes, a new chapter would begin. If you're yet to watch the first part of this story, kindly check it out. It shows how the Nupe rose under Tsoede, built their kingdom, and reached the height of power that now stands on the brink of change. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this video so you won't miss the full journey of the Nupe, one of the most fascinating stories in African history. In the late 19th century, the era of African empires gave way to European colonization. The Nupe Emirate first came into contact with the British through trading ventures. In 1871, representatives of the Royal Niger Company, a British chartered company, arrived seeking commercial agreements. The British were interested in the region's palm oil, cotton, and other resources, as well as suppressing the slave trade. At first, relations were polite. Treaties were signed to allow the Royal Niger Company to establish trading posts along the Niger River. However, tensions soon arose. The Nupe ruling class profited from slave trading and toll collection, activities the British traders found obstructive to their own interests. Disputes escalated over who controlled commerce on the river and in the markets. By the 1890s, the British decided to enforce their will by force of arms. In January 1897, a British-led force, consisting of some British officers and several hundred African soldiers, often from Hausa regiments, marched on Bida, the Nupe capital. This campaign is sometimes called the Niger Expedition or the Battle of Bida. The incumbent Etsu Nupe at the time, Emir Abubakar, mustered his fighters, including the famous Nupe cavalry, to resist the incursion. The Nupe warriors, armed with muskets, spears, and bows, fought bravely to defend Bida. But the British had superior firepower, Maxim guns, and modern rifles, and a well-drilled force. After some fierce clashes on the plains around Bida, the Nupe forces were defeated, and Bida town surrendered on January 29, 1897. The Union Jack was raised over the Emir's palace, signaling British victory. Initially, the Royal Niger Company installed a new emir more favorable to British interests. However, this arrangement did not last long. The local population remained loyal to the Fulani royal house, and Nupe nobles reinstalled the ousted Fulani emir shortly after the company troops left. This open defiance could not be tolerated by the colonial powers. By 1900, the British government had revoked the charter of the Royal Niger Company and assumed direct control of northern Nigeria. In 1901, a British expedition returned to Bida, removed the emir who had been restored, and formally occupied the Nupe kingdom, bringing it under the British protectorate of northern Nigeria. The Nupe Emirate was then reorganized by the colonial authorities. They referred to it as the Bida Emirate, a subdivision of the new Niger province. Under British rule, the Nupe did not face the extermination or total displacement that some other colonized peoples did. Instead, the British employed their policy of indirect rule. They kept the structure of emirates and local chiefs in place, using them to administer the colony. The Etsu Nupe, the emir, remained, but now he was a vassal to the British crown, expected to follow the guidance of British district officers. The Nupe aristocracy, in effect, became an arm of the colonial government, enforcing colonial taxes and orders among their people. While this guaranteed a measure of continuity, the Nupe laws and customs were largely respected so long as they didn't contradict colonial interests. It also meant a loss of independence and the imposition of foreign control over justice, taxation, and trade. Colonial rule brought significant changes to Nupe society. The British outlawed the slave trade, which had ripple effects on the Nupe economy. Slave raiding ceased, and slaves were emancipated over time. They also introduced Western education and Christianity, though in predominantly Muslim Nupe areas, mission schools were few compared to the south of Nigeria. Some Nupe children attended new colonial schools or Quranic schools reformed with British support. The British built railways and roads that connected Nupe towns to broader markets. For instance, a railway line passing through Minna, north of Nupeland, facilitated the export of cotton and groundnuts. Traditional industries faced competition from imported European goods, but Nupe crafts like brasswork and cloth weaving also found new markets as native art. Despite being under foreign rule, the Nupe kept their cultural institutions alive. The British allowed traditional festivals and courts to function to an extent. The Etsu Nupe continued to hold court in Bida, still revered by his people as the custodian of tradition, even as he took orders from British residents. By the time Nigeria was preparing for independence in the mid-20th century, the Nupe had produced Western-educated elites who entered politics and the civil service. For example, Nupe figures like Aliyu Makama Bida were active in the northern region's politics in the 1950s, and Nupe professionals became teachers, lawyers, and civil servants, contributing to the nascent nation. Nigeria gained independence from Britain in 1960, and the Nupe homeland became part of the new Federation of Nigeria, initially within the northern region. The legacy of colonial rule remained in the form of regional boundaries and administrative structures, but the Nupe were eager to take charge of their own destiny within the independent nation. With independence, the Nupe people found themselves citizens of a modern state, yet still bound by the ties of language, culture, and their historical kingdom. Nigeria went through various reorganizations, and by 1976, the Nupe heartland was situated mainly in Niger State, created from a division of the old northern region. Bida, the traditional capital, became an important town in Niger State, and a number of Nupe towns, like Lafiagi and Paitgi, found themselves in neighboring Kwara State due to boundary adjustments. Regardless of these lines on maps, Nupe people across state lines share a common identity and often refer to their area collectively as Nupeland. The traditional leadership of the Nupe continued to command respect after independence. The Etsu Nupe, often now referred to as the Emir of Bida in official terms, remains a highly revered figure. Today, His Royal Highness the Etsu Nupe in Bida serves as the ceremonial monarch of the Nupe, playing a role in local cultural preservation and acting as a community leader. Even though he no longer holds formal political power, the Etsu is influential. He settles local disputes, advises government on cultural matters, and is a symbol of Nupe unity. Notably, the Etsu Nupe is recognized as the primary traditional ruler for all Nupe people. Other Nupe towns have their local chiefs or Etsus, but they all pay allegiance to the Etsu Nupe in Bida as the paramount traditional ruler. In the decades since independence, the Nupe have actively participated in Nigeria's national life. Many have risen to prominence in various fields. For instance, Justice Idris Legbo Kutigi, who hailed from a Nupe town, served as the Chief Justice of Nigeria, the head of the nation's Supreme Court, in the 2000s. Another Nupe son, Mamangia Vatsa, was a general and famed poet in the Nigerian army. He served as a federal minister in the 1980s. Jerry Garner, a Nupe academic, became a senior government minister and a key figure in Nigerian politics. These individuals, and many others in academia, business, and the arts, have showcased the Nupe's contributions to the modern Nigerian state. Despite their rich history and achievements, the Nupe region faces contemporary challenges. Economically, Nupeland is still largely rural and agrarian. Most Nupe people farm or fish for their livelihood, just as their ancestors did. The Niger and Kaduna rivers' floodplains, called Fadama, are extensively cultivated, especially for rice, which has become the staple. In fact, Nupe area is sometimes nicknamed one of Nigeria's rice baskets, and visitors are often greeted with generous servings of local rice dishes and fresh fish as a sign of hospitality. Beyond agriculture, there have been efforts to industrialize. A sugar refinery was established at Basita, and two of Nigeria's major hydroelectric dams, Kainji Dam and Jebba Dam on the Niger River, lie in or near Nupe territory. These projects have provided some jobs and infrastructure. Indeed, with these power stations, one can say Nupeland helps keep Nigeria's lights on, literally providing electricity to the nation. However, many Nupe communities still feel the pinch of underdevelopment. There are few large industries and limited investment in the region. As a result, a lot of Nupe people seek education and then work as civil servants, teachers. Teaching is noted as one of the common professions in Nupe area, or migrate to bigger cities like Abuja and Lagos for opportunities. Community leaders have sometimes voiced concerns that the Nupe have not gotten their fair share of Nigeria's development in political representation and federal resources. There have even been calls at constitutional conferences for the creation of a separate Nupe state, carved out of Niger and Kwara, to give the Nupe people greater autonomy and focus in development, though this has not materialized. Culturally, the Nupe people remain proud and vibrant, striving to balance tradition with modernity. The Nupe language, Nupe or Nupechi, is still widely spoken at home, though Hausa and English are often used in schools and cities. Linguists classify Nupe as part of the Niger-Congo family, closely related to other Nupoid languages like Jibaji or Gweri and Ebira. Within Nupe, there are several dialects. For example, Nupe spoken in Bida, central Nupeland, might sound a bit different from Nupe in coastal villages like Paitgi or in Kogi State, but speakers can generally understand each other. In recent years, there's been a revival of interest in promoting the Nupe language and culture. A noteworthy development is the emergence of a Nupe film industry, nicknamed Nupewood, which began in the late 1990s. Pioneering Nupe filmmakers and actors started producing movies in the Nupe language, telling stories that reflect Nupe life and folklore. This local cinema blossomed in the 2000s, producing hundreds of movies for Nupe audiences hungry to see their own culture on screen. Through these films, a new generation is reconnecting with Nupe traditions, even as they adapt to the modern world. From Tsoede's unification to the rise of Bida, from the clash with the British to the birth of modern Nupeland. The story of the Nupe people is one of strength, faith, and endurance. They have faced kings and conquerors, embraced Islam, adapted to new times, and still kept their traditions alive. Today, the Niger still flows through their land, just as history flows through their hearts. The Nupe story reminds us that kingdoms may fall, but a people's spirit never does. Their art, language, music, and pride still shine brightly in the heart of Nigeria. If this story moved you, give it a like, share it with someone who loves history, and subscribe for more powerful stories of Africa's past and its people. Because history, when told by us, lives again.